It's my pleasure to welcome for her first time, Charrosé King-Mathews. She is a strategic communications instructor at Howard University, where she's also pursuing her PhD in communication, culture, and media studies. She researches and writes about rest and creativity as methods of resistance and healing. Charrosé just left the faculty of N10 after 5 years. She's at Charrosé CK. Charrosé, welcome to Nonprofit Radio.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Pleasure. I'm glad you are. But tell us a little more about your research and your writing on rest and creativity as methods of resistance and healing. What does that work? What does that work look like? What is that?
So I am, starting out. So I'm going to be discovering what that work looks like. But I've always been very interested. What do you think it's going to look like? I'm sorry?
What do you think it's going to look like? What do you hope it's going to look like?
Well, where I'm starting from is like I've always been interested in creativity and art and being able to express oneself through artistic mediums and helping other people to do that as well. And I think creativity is like a huge social driver for change. If we look at like music and art and fashion and the way that people are drawn into movements by the ways that we can use creativity in order to, engage people and get them to think about different things. But also on the other side of that rest is so important to creativity, and looking at the ways that, systems of oppression have stifled communities' abilities to produce creative work with low wages that require them to work, constantly just to be able to afford a living. And, well, in my case, as a Black woman, having ancestors who were brought here specifically to work, and how that has, our relationships with work and as opposed to living a more creative and pleasurable life, and how we can, move towards everyone being able to have those more creative opportunities, and how that can change our world for the better for everyone.
Cool. All right. They're interesting tensions, because writing about rest and creativity, to me, those are inapposite. I mean, you're not at your most creative when you're resting. Creativity to me is is activity, stimulation, and then rest. But then as methods of healing and resistance, to me, those are inapposite too. I don't. They're both critical, but I don't see them as consistent. Like when you're healing yourself, you're not in a resistance state. Resistance to me is, agitation.
Yeah.
And advocacy, but that's inapposite to healing. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, I'm thinking like the balance of the two, and how you need one to have the other, and that kind of thing, and seeing how they are synchronous, and just I want everyone to have, be able to live healthier, more fulfilling lives, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, healthy, but also productive and resistant when needed. Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, it's two different spectrums to me: rest and creativity, healing and resistance. Interesting. All right. I'll look forward to your dissertation. In how many years? How many years does this program take you, do you think?
So typically about 4. I will be finishing up my classes this year, and then I'll be focusing just on my dissertation proposal and then my dissertation.
Yeah, and research. All right. Yep. Very good. Welcome. All right. It's glad to have you. So you've got some savvy ideas coming off the N10 faculty as well. So Howard faculty, N10 faculty. I'm not sure which is more prestigious. Well, one is prestigious in lots of respects, and the other has its niche in nonprofit tech. So they're both prestigious.
They're both quite prestigious in my heart. I love it.
In their own. Yes, that's right. That's right. Not zero sum by any means. They can both be highly prestigious. So you've got some ideas around social media trends, what you see coming for 2022. What do you see happening with our social media platforms?
So I looked at, what some of the like social media blogs and what they're saying is coming up. And some things that I'm seeing are more audio only features, like on Twitter, on Facebook, which would be great for people who listen to podcasts. Maybe that fits in well.
Absolutely.
And even like
Facebook
TikTok.
Facebook is coming to audio only a little slow. I mean, I've been podcasting since 2010.
Right.
So where they been? Where's Facebook been?
And radio's been around for a very long time.
Radio's been around. Yeah.
Audio.
But where they they're coming late to the format.
Yeah, and I think so. I think that happens like with technology. Sometimes we like jump ahead, and it's like sometimes we might lose things that were good before, and we have to kind of rediscover them, and they show up in a different way in some ways, like we see here on like Twitter and Facebook. Also, TikTok will be is working on streaming. Well, it's released in some countries internationally, but it's another example of a platform focusing more on audio only content.
Oh wait, so TikTok moving away from video?
Not away, but audio only also.
In addition. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So
yeah.
All right. So let's talk about this audio only trend then. You're saying Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, promoting audio only formats. What do you see nonprofits able to do? I mean, how do you see leveraging that? Are they all short form? Like, is TikTok, like TikTok audio format limited to 15 seconds?
So each of them is a little different. I know on Twitter, for example, you can have like, instead of like a live video that's going on, you can have an audio room where people are chatting. Anyone can listen in, but only certain people can chat. So that might be good for like, if you're having a panel discussion or something like that, and maybe video is not as important to it. And you can do it that way, especially if you are, working virtually and people in different locations. If video is not as important, that can be helpful. And also, like when now they have a lot of different ways that they will appear on these different platforms. But I think, as always, and I want to say this for like all the trends that we'll talk about, you want to think about how it works for your organization in particular, because they're popping up with different features all the time. So you have to think about how do we best communicate with our audience. So I think, in short form places, you might share like specific snippets of your podcast. If your organization has a podcast, maybe you would share specific snippets, or maybe particular quotes or updates that you could share, like with a photo, and then like a message that goes along with that photo, which is also, I think the benefit of that is it's a bit of a lower, you don't need as much equipment or technical know-how like you would need to do in order to create a video. With the video, you might need to do some editing, or you might need to create some graphics. But if you have photos, you can use those in lots of different places and incorporate audio with them, on certain posts to enhance the content.
Okay. Very interesting. Audio only. Do you envision that TikTok audio only feature will still be limited to the 15 seconds?
I don't remember reading how long it would be. But okay, so TikTok is also moving into, like, because they use a lot of music and stuff on their platform, they're also looking into TikTok streaming, like having a streaming service that is a competitor to Spotify. And then you also have Spotify incorporating more social media into theirs. So you see a lot of hybrid things happening. between some of these like audio and social media in particular right now. And I would say we did see this a lot with video. I mean, we had Vine was huge, and YouTube, of course, we still have YouTube. But a lot of these things are the things that we already use to communicate, and they pop up in different ways depending on what features are available and how the different audiences communicate with one another on those different platforms.
So that's interesting. You bring up Vine. I mean, how come Vine went away, but TikTok is flourishing? How come? Why is that?
Yeah, I know. On Vine, yeah, right. So Vine went away, and Instagram at that time started having short videos too. So it was like Instagram kind of picked up that short video format, and then Vine, wasn't needed as much because you have your photos and your video on Instagram then. So then we lose Vine, but we have all of Vine's features on a different platform.
Yeah, the TikTok. So what?
Right.
How come Vine couldn't make it work?
And I think that's something that we really want to think critically about when we're looking at these trends and the different platforms that come up, because there are a lot of politics behind it. It's which ones have the most money. Like Instagram is owned by Facebook, so they have a lot more money and resources, and Facebook is everywhere, all over the globe, in nearly every country, whereas something as a contrast, we have TikTok, which has been threatened to be shut down in the US unless they sold part of their company to an American owner. So we have things like that are going on in the background that we make certain apps have more ability to reach more people. So it's about how we use them and whether they are serving people's needs, and that it's fun to use and all of that. But also we need to think about, it's not always just the audience that determine which one is a successful platform.
Does that mean that we should not be pioneers or even maybe early adopters when a platform emerges, that we not invest time in it when it may not survive? I mean, like, should we wait 18 months before we jump into a new platform?
That's a really good question, because that's what we're talking about here, trends. We want to know trends because we want to know, how do we react to these new things?
Yeah.
And to that, I would say, like, if you're a smaller nonprofit, and I've worked at many, you don't have a lot of resources. I like to think of the social media, managing that as a capsule wardrobe. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with a capsule wardrobe,
but
you
that's define that. We have jargon jail on Nonprofit Radio. So capsule wardrobe will definitely land you in jargon jail. I don't know.
So, right. So a capsule wardrobe, if you think of, I think a great example is Fran Fine on The Nanny. She has a very, dramatic wardrobe. However, if you pay attention, she's pretty much always wearing a black turtleneck, black tights, and black shoes. And then she'll put like a fun jacket or a fun skirt on top of those things. And so that's a way to extend a wardrobe on fewer pieces, and just choosing like a statement piece. So the way I look at that is like, with your social media, you want to have good bones, good structure. You want to have some image templates that you can use. And then when there's I just talked about images before and putting audio with them. So if you already have great images that you've worked on and put a lot of care into curating, you can then add these other things on top of them as these trends change. I would also say, as far as new platforms coming up, I think it's always worth your time to at least create an account, so that if that platform becomes more popular in the future, you've already claimed your organization's name on there, so that it's easy to find you, and it'll be, more cohesive part of your brand. So I think that's always worth it, because that doesn't take a lot of time.
That's a great
I would
idea.
say,
Yeah. And like, in
yeah,
like 5 minutes, you can claim your territory, and then,
right,
then
exactly.
keep it defunct for 2 years or something, and see what
Until,
happens. And
right, and see
maybe
what
never,
happens
right? I
until
mean,
it, right, exactly. And that's fine too. That's
yeah,
fine too,
yeah,
because you're putting your time where you know that your audience is, and what's going to pay off. Because without a lot of time and resources, we have to be very smart about where we're putting our focus. And social media, because it's so vast, when you send stuff out, it can just go out into the ether, and no one, it might
yeah.
not get traction. So you need to be very smart about how you're using your time.
Well,
So I would
that's
say,
your
like,
core capsule.
yeah, you're right. So you have your core images and the kinds of messages that that you can
Oh,
use. Also, this might be referred to as evergreen content that you can use all the time. No matter the time of year, but it's always relevant to your organization. I think that's a very important thing to have in kind of your capsule wardrobe of social media fashion.
Yes. Oh,
Um,
your capsule wardrobe. Your capsule wardrobe. Yes, I called it your core
mhm.
capsule. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, that's fine.
Well, I want to be, I want to be up. I want to be timely. No, my time's long past. So, all right. Yes, absolutely. Of course, evergreen content, repurposing. You want to be smart. If something goes on your blog, maybe you can pull a 10-second clip, an audio, and quote it somewhere, on Twitter or Facebook or TikTok when the audio only features
Yeah.
are available. And then, it could be maybe it can be part of an email. Maybe it lives somewhere else on your website. Maybe it could be a social
Mhm.
media post in print instead of audio. Right. So you want to be smart
Right.
about repurposing.
Mhm.
Okay.
And right, and one an acronym that I use for that I've
Oh yeah.
heard is COPE: create once, publish everywhere.
Okay.
So
Very
like
good.
your blog post, you created it once, but then you're using all those pieces of the blog post in different places on your social media, or your website and your blog and your emails and all of that.
I love it. Create once, publish everywhere. Cope. Okay.
Yep.
So we got our capsule wardrobe. We have our cope. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So this is interesting. This audio format. I mean, obviously, as a podcaster, and I've been a long time listener of radio. I mean, I think radio is just such an intimate format.
Mhm.
It feels close. I mean, I got my inspiration for this show from radio shows.
Right. Mhm.
Um, Really interesting. In one respect, it's a step back from the video, because now you're only getting half the, not half the content really, but
Mhm.
half the stimulation. I mean, but I don't consider it a step backwards. But
Right.
somebody could say, well, no picture anymore. Well, but video is the trending. But now audio is trending.
Mhm.
I don't
And
know.
I think it's,
That's why we need you on to make sense of this for us. Or for
I
me.
mean, as you were,
I'm not, maybe other people may be more sad, but make sense of it for me, please.
so as you were talking, I was thinking, how you said like radio can feel much more intimate than watching a video. And
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of like reading a book versus watching a movie, the way you described it, kind of
Yeah.
like, and sometimes, using our own imagination and with the content that whether we're reading or listening, using our own imagination, I think also helps us build a bond in some way. Whereas when you have a video, it's like you don't have to use your imagination. You can see what this person looks like and where they're sitting and how they're speaking and all of that kind of thing, which I think takes away I think that's part of like our creativity that makes us interested in having, not knowing everything right away. And I especially think like with audio, you're not thinking about how you look. You're just really participating with the content.
Interesting. That reminds me of a host I used to listen to on National Public Radio, Terry Gross. She never wanted to be in the same studio as her guests. They're always remote, and there was no camera feed. She didn't want the visual stimulation. She wanted to focus on the conversation, and that's it. She didn't want the person in the room. She didn't want to see them wherever they were, whatever studio they were in. She didn't want to see them from there. It was just the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right, of course, I'm blowing it here because I can see you right now, and we may put this on YouTube. So, well, you're stuck with a lackluster
choice. People have the choice, so to watch or just listen.
That's true. You can turn your screen. You could turn off your screen. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You could go for the go for the creativity and just listen.
Right.
I guess it's not so good to just watch though. That's not going to be good. Like, don't turn the sound down and try to read the lips. That you're missing too much content there. I wouldn't suggest doing it that way. All right. You think TikTok is growing too? You have a prediction about TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, so I was reading this on, I think, Hootsuite, that TikTok is growing, will surpass Instagram in the number of active users. And, you know, that's, I mean, we do see a lot of the, you know, younger audiences on there, like Gen Z and stuff like that. And I was also reading about, well, let me say, so I always want to be like, it's great when companies can grow and it shows how popular they are, but I do also want to go back to, you know, what we just said about why certain platforms grow faster than others or might succeed where others don't, even though they have the same features. But so with TikTok and Instagram, and you know, which one is popular is important for our organization, which one's most popular is important, but we also want to look at where our audience is in particular. So if you know that your audience is, you know, this demographic, which is, you know, it's boomers who live in Arizona or whatever demographic it is, and it's not, you don't see your audience on TikTok, then it doesn't make too much sense to go on there. But as we said, go and claim your account, make your space. So if it ever, as the demographics change, because that's important to remember too, demographics change over time. If we just look at Facebook, for example, Facebook was only open to university students. So that was a very small demographic, but then it grew and grew. So we can see, like, these are where the numbers are for a moment, but that changes, and we can use that information to try to help make our decisions. But we should always remember that none of these are hard and fast rules, and we have to think about ourselves as the expert of our audiences and think about how social media is a tool to help us reach those people that we know best.
And your good point, you know, knowing where they are, mm-hmm. and knowing that may shift as well.
Yep, exactly.
Grandparents were not on Facebook 15 years ago, mm-hmm. But now it's common, well, even before the pandemic, for grandparents to stay in touch with grandkids through Facebook. So
right, and a lot of my students do not use Facebook anymore.
Right. Well, their grandparents are on it. They don't want to be with their
exactly.
Right.
That's where you go to look at pictures of your family and stuff, but not talk to your friends.
Right. Facebook is a perfect study in shifting demographics. That's an excellent example.
Yeah, very interesting.
The pioneers were driven off by their grandparents. You know? They were. All right. So if TikTok surpasses Instagram, all right. So it's just something to be aware of, that mm-hmm. TikTok is growing in audience size that way, and so it might be a place for you to look. Mm-hmm. But maybe not. And we're going to get to the maybe nots. You know, every platform is not for everybody. But again, I love your advice about, you know, claim your spot.
Mhm.
an account in your name. So nobody beats you to it. And then you have to be creative or, be Tony Martignetti 2 or something, because
Right.
you didn't get in there, or the real Tony
Exactly.
Martignetti, um, all right. What else? Anything else you want to talk about, like audio wise, audio video wise?
Um, no, I don't think so for that one.
All right. So let's talk about creating content that,
Hmm.
that gets people to listen and watch, and gets them engaged. What's your advice around, even, especially like short form, this emerging
Hmm.
short form audio? I mean, you had some ideas, about snippets, but what, like, maybe you've seen something that's particularly striking, like audio or video wise, that is a good example or something like that?
So with creating content, and especially with short form, I think that's definitely, a challenge for a lot of social media accounts, for a lot of our organizations, especially those that do very complex, work. And we want to communicate about it, but this very brief, these very brief formats make it very difficult. And I always try to emphasize with my colleagues and reminding myself that social media is a place to direct people to more information. So, like, yes, those clips are very short, but you want to make sure you're using that to direct people where they can get more information, where it's, you know, whether it's, signing up volunteers or donations, or what do you want them to do after, and always have some kind of idea of what each of your posts are doing for you. So you don't want to, just put any kind of content out there. You have 15 seconds or however short the clip is, and you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of your time. So when you are, like, again, we would go back to the capsule wardrobe, making sure you have those solid foundations, creating some graphics that you can reuse, but also, look at what your peers, similar organizations are doing, also what your audience is sharing. Even if it's not, specific to your organization, you can see what your audience is interested in and how they are spending their time. I often, in the course that I was doing with N10, I would often talk about thinking about walking through the day in your audience, in any of your audience members' shoes, and thinking about how are they spending their morning? Is that a good time to reach them? And, what are they doing in the morning, and how might, your work relate to that in some way? Like if somebody, spends their morning, watering their garden, and you are, an environmental organization, and how you can kind of show that you have common interests there and relating to what they're interested in. So looking at what they are already interested in, but also looking at what some of your competitors and similar organizations to yours are doing, and identifying, not just looking at what they're doing and copying them, but looking at what they're doing, identifying what works and what doesn't, and also how you can put a spin on things for your brand. There's a quote like, good artists copy, great artists steal.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Right.
So we want to, so it's perfectly legitimate to look at what other companies are doing and try them in your own way. Another thing is, there's nothing new under the sun. So all of these ideas we're regenerating and recreating, and which is creativity, thinking of these things from all these different places, and they come together to make new things. So when you're thinking about your content and how to make it, engaging, you want to go back to the things. Think less about the technology and think more about, the very essence of good storytelling, and what makes a good photo, making sure that they're good quality, and all of those things will take you a lot farther than thinking about trends and styles because they change so quickly.
Okay. All right. That was a lot. Excellent. So like, let's start with calls to action. You want every piece of content to have some call to action. Something like
Yeah,
you said, somewhere for folks to go or something for folks to do.
mm-hmm.
Learn more, volunteer, donate, sign the petition.
Right.
Okay. So in
Or
the short,
even if
please.
it's not a direct call to action, like, sign up, even if you know the purpose, like, okay, we are interacting with this audience member in order to, build a better relationship with our audience. Always make sure that you know why you're posting and you're not just spending time sending things out, because that's where you start to, sink all your time into something that might not be paying off.
All right. Gotcha. Have a purpose. And in short form audio, I mean, if you want folks to go somewhere, maybe to learn more, or, if there is an explicit call to action, learn more at a landing page, maybe you're testing the outcomes. So you have a landing page or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Short form audio, now you have to devote part of your 15 seconds to reading a web address.
So with the short form audio, it's always going to be in a place, they're going to have to be looking at something to click on it or have some kind of text with it in order to, like, it'll come up in their feed or something like that. So whatever description, or, sometimes in most places you can comment even beneath yourself. So wherever you see any opportunity to put in that information, is important to do that. But as far as, with audio as well, I think it's also, sometimes I see, actually not, this is audio and text, but sometimes I'll see like very long URLs. And I think it's important to remember to use a URL shortener. I think definitely, and when you're doing audio, whether, short form or a little longer, and you want to include a URL, make sure that you use like bit.ly.com or something where you can customize it to be something easy to remember. And you don't have to say HTTP XQYZ, all of that.
Yeah. I like to go even further. I bought the vanity domain, Tony.ma. So I can do Tony through MA, I think is Morocco. I'm pretty sure I bought that. I think every 2 years I pay the country of Morocco. I'm pretty sure that's MA. It's not Mauritania. I think it's Morocco. I'm pretty sure it's Morocco. So yeah, so Tony.ma/ and then I can say, nonprofit radio, email sign up, whatever. All right. So that may be worth investing in a little vanity shortener too. But Bitly, of course.
But even Bitly is free, right?
Free. Yeah,
exactly.
I like free resources. Absolutely. And then you mentioned peers. Evaluating what your peers are doing. See what other nonprofits are doing. So you mean literally looking at their feeds and different platforms and see what they're talking about and how they talk.
Yep. And so you should definitely be following your peer organizations. They're also a great resource for creating content, not just, if you work together sometimes on a shared project, you can help boost each other's visibility on social media. But you do want to be following your peer organizations. Also, as a social media manager, you tend to befriend the other social media managers because you know what each other are going through, and so that's actually a great community in following each other, because then you can reach out to each other, help because you're in it for the same cause. So it's like you're boosting the same content and helping achieve your mission overall that both of you want to achieve.
That could even lead to some deeper collaboration, maybe. I've had guests talk about the possibility of like doing Giving Tuesday, combined campaigns. I don't remember other examples, but just shared promotion,
Mhm.
shared projects,
Right.
shared promotion. All right.
And one of the ones that I've had the most success with as far as partnership and shared promotion is, well, I don't see them as much anymore, but for a time there were Twitter chats were pretty popular.
Right.
I don't see them as much as I used to, but whenever I've done them, we would always get like tons more engagement with our content. That was one of our, I would put that on par with Twitter chats and tweeting at conventions. That is when we would get the most followers, the most retweets, the most engagements generally. And now I'm thinking, with the Twitter audio rooms and stuff like that, that could be, instead of having a Twitter chat where you're typing it out, maybe you have people come in and listen to your panel discussion of experts talking about whatever the theme is, and introducing people to your brand that way.
Cool. Excellent ideas. All right. You recommended paying attention to what your audience shares.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to do more of what's popular and less of what people think sucks, right?
So, yeah. So, well, before I was a lecturer at Howard, I worked in the office of the vice president for student affairs, and I was managing the social media there. And the school environment is especially important to watch what your audience is saying, because we would need to watch for any problems that are coming up and stuff like that. But that's the kind of thing I think you want to look for generally, and not just, problems. Doesn't have to be something dire, but what is your audience concerned about that your organization can help answer? And what are the problems that they encounter, or the ways that they feel the issue that you cover, how that impacts their lives. So sometimes it might be looking at, exactly what they're posting, exactly what they're saying. And sometimes it means more of a looking at overall and kind of observing, what you might even notice, like challenges and things that come up that your audience does not. But you can perhaps, show how your work can help with these things that they may not even notice are issues relating to your organization.
What about the use of analytics to evaluate what your folks are sharing? Can that be valuable there?
Absolutely. You should definitely be keeping track of your analytics. If you don't have a dedicated person who can look at the analytics every month, you at least want to be downloading them so you have them. Whenever I have started a new position as a social media manager, one of the first things I do is to go to all of the social media accounts and download as much of their analytical history as I possibly can. So if you're already keeping, and the thing is, some platforms that you can't go back any farther than a couple years or a couple of months. So it's very important to get that right away, even if you can't look at it consistently, because one day if you do have someone who's able to dedicate time to that, they have tons of content to go on where they can look at, oh, we had a huge jump in subscribers at this time, and then they can go and look at, well, what was going on at that time? What did we post? What was drawing in so much engagement? And so that's why you really, that's why your analytics are so important. And it's less about like looking through them every day or sorry, every month or so, because, if you don't have a dedicated person for that, that takes a lot of time. But being familiar with, around how many followers you have, or being able to see the trend of, what is normal engagement for us, so that then you can see when you do have a huge spike, you'll be easily able to identify like, oh, here's where that came from, and here's how we can duplicate that success also, because that's another thing you want to think about. How can we do this again? How can we use it for a different campaign, or in what other ways can we benefit from this content that that did so well?
Which are the platforms that you think have the better analytics?
I definitely have opinions about that.
Okay, share. So, don't hold back.
Twitter has great analytics. You will find, so in a lot of communications scholarship, like peer-reviewed journals and stuff, when they're talking about social media, they will often use Twitter analytics because they're the easiest to access. So Twitter makes it very easy to download all of your analytics from your account and put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then from there you can do whatever you want to do with it. There are on the other end, I would say, like for example, Instagram. You have to go to like each individual post and see how many many it had, right? So you have to type them in, and yeah. So and that allows Meta to have, more control over that content. The Facebook analytics are pretty good, but again, you kind of have to keep them within Facebook. So it's harder to, take them out and analyze them in different ways. So any platform that's going to allow you to download them in an Excel spreadsheet is ideal. But, sometimes I have had to go through it and I'm typing them in individually from Instagram. So, and that could also, be a factor in deciding which platforms that you spend most of your time on. Because, if you are focusing on, if you want to focus a lot on your analytics, you want to, and you want to have a platform where you can easily download them and it doesn't take a lot of extra work. So, these are all things to think about when you're deciding, what works best for how you present on social media.
What's another one that's good besides Twitter? Analytics wise, judging the analytics. I like Facebook, the analytics that the way that their analytics are in the platform. Those. Right, you can't export them. So I'm thinking, for the most, they tried, they're all, so I would also recommend, so I don't know of Twitter is the best ones. I don't know of any other ones don't really compare to that. Okay,
but Twitter,
fair enough. All right.
Yeah, but Twitter is also starting to lock down some of that. Like it's not quite as much data as you could get before. So but there's also, platforms where like Hootsuite, for example, where you can have multiple social media platforms and see your analytics aggregated there. I do caution though that when you use one of those platforms, the numbers might be a little bit different. Like there might be like some lag time between, Twitter and Twitter on Hootsuite. So and also like the labels and the way that data is labeled. So on one platform a certain action might be called interactions, whereas on another platform they're called engagements, and how they measure each of those things and what they're called could be different. So it's just making sure we're watching for those.
Why would like a Twitter start restricting the robustness of the analytics, the way you just said they're tightening that up? Why would they offer less? They want to charge for it? They want to start charging a fee to get it, or what?
That's, and we don't know until it's public. So that is one thing that could, I'm not sure why it's more difficult to get information, but it's beneficial to companies. That information is money to them, so it is beneficial to them when they have proprietary keeping content that is valuable to them. I would but Twitter,
they could have it too and share it with us too. They're only sharing it with users. Users can only get their little bit. The company is welcome to aggregate the hundreds of millions of users. They can do whatever you want with your proprietary data, but let me have my little share. Why are you taking in the era of transparency? What are you taking my little share away for?
You would think, but I don't know.
All right, you don't have all the answers. Nobody does. I know. These black boxes that we've all signed on to in the last 20 years. Sometimes they're more annoyance than additive, but sometimes. I'm not saying I'm opposed to social media, obviously, but They can be very annoying, very annoying.
Mhm.
We could spend a whole hour talking about Facebook, or a day about the annoyances
Yeah.
behind Facebook and the shift from organic to paid. It's just, to me, that's just corporate greed.
Right.
But all right,
Mhm.
let's
And I
talk
think a
about
lot
something.
of that is, power from the users and putting it back in the hands of the company, because users do have so much power, and a lot of their ideas come from the users that are using the platforms.
Yeah.
So I think it's, wanting to control how people use that platform and the information they can get from it.
Yeah, I mean,
Which I think
think
goes to show how powerful the platforms
I know,
are.
but
If they're trying to,
it's exploitation. I mean, I'll
yeah,
use I'll
exactly.
use Facebook, the most egregious example, as the example, but they goaded us all in. They have 2.5 billion users now. A third of the planet is. They brought us in, and then they shepherd. Much less organic reach. Now, you want the same reach you had? You pay for it. Pay for it.
Exactly.
Pay us. Pay Goldman Sachs, and you can have that. We have your reach back that we gave you originally, and it's egregious. It's egregious exploitation.
And I feel like social media has so much power for bringing people together. And so that's why I caution about, like, with trends and stuff, we do need to be critical about, was this trend created because it's something users wanted, or because the company needs to innovate and grow,
Yeah.
So that's another reason why you can wait and give yourself some time to see which trends are taking on and what makes sense for you, because you don't want to just be throwing your time into this machine that is just there to make money for them. You want to make sure that you're getting the best value out of that.
What a beautiful segue to a closing section. Let's talk about, every platform is not for every nonprofit. You've made the point already. You can squat on your account, create your account, and just squat it, hold it. But every, even the bigger platforms, we don't have to be everywhere.
Exactly.
So, reassure us that we don't need to be on every major platform.
Definitely. Right. So there are, like, and this is something I say in my class too, like, in learning about social media, and there's constantly new stuff, you do not have to know everything about it. You do not have to be on every platform. Your audience is not on every platform. No single person can manage all of the social media accounts the social media platforms that there are. So I think the most important thing, is to get back to that good structure and knowing who your audience is, and how to communicate with them. And then, using the different quirks of those social media accounts and different features to tweak that. But as far as, you might also want to think of, as we're talking about, these big companies and what data they're keeping and control and stuff like that, that might also be a factor in deciding which platforms you're on. Like, back to N10, N10 is no longer on Facebook because the some of the business practices that Facebook has used do not does not work well with N10's mission and the ways that they operate. And those are things you have to weigh that. If a lot of your audience is on Facebook and that's the only way to reach them, then maybe you do stay, but you have this understanding of, like, that there are issues and we're working around them and trying to make the best of these environments, but they are businesses, and so we need to be smart about where we're spending our time.
Excellent advice. Very savvy. Thank you. All right. Charrosé King-Mathews. You'll find her at Charrosé CK. And I'm going to spell her name so you can find her. CHARROSE. Charrosé King. Thank you very much. Great advice.
Thank you.
My pleasure.